It's a Football Friday, live right here on the early line on SportsGrid and all across the SportsGrid network. That includes sportsgrid.com/watch, where you can find your favorite destination and consume everything all across the grid. I am Ben Stevens. He is Donnie Rightside. Not just a Football Friday, a divisional round Football Friday, entering what many consider DRS the best weekend of the NFL postseason, maybe the best weekend of football all year long. 4 games spread out over 2 days, a doubleheader on both Saturday and Sunday. Teams hoping to clinch their spots in a conference championship. The NFL's Final 8 still in the chase for a Lombardi Trophy. Here on this Football Friday, we preview all 4 matchups on Saturday and Sunday, breakdowns and the key matchups that will determine the outcomes and those berths in a conference championship game.
Yeah, and shout out the NFL here, no longer posting these games at 1 o'clock. They allow you to get all your chores done. Hit Bed, Bath, and Beyond. Go out there for a little bit of, exercise in the morning, and then hunker in on Saturday and Sunday and get ready for some great football. Can't wait to preview it today. And yes, it feels good. It is a true Football Friday, and we're ready to get after it.
The 1 seeds in action, the best teams in either conference this year, the Baltimore Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers enter the postseason fold. Again, we will preview both games on Saturday, both games on Sunday. Picks, previews, breakdowns coming your way over these 3 hours up until 11 a.m. Eastern time. Before we get into the football, we look back on a 5-game slate around the association in the NBA. In the Western Conference's best team is the Minnesota Timberwolves. The first team out west to reach the 30-win benchmark this year. The T-Wolves needed a dramatic fourth-quarter comeback against the shorthanded Memphis Grizzlies. Before that, we welcome in our SportsGrid radio audience, opening hour of a divisional round Football Friday, live right here on the early line. Sirius XM Channel 159. All of our radio terrestrial affiliates now in the fold. He is Donnie. I am Ben. And the Timberwolves get to 30 wins last night, DRS, in the Twin Cities, outscoring the Grizzlies by 20 points and scoring 37 in that fourth and final quarter for a 15-point victory, 118-103 at home, covering as a 12.5-point favorite.
I think we got a trend today on the show, Ben. Memphis teams really struggling in the second half and blowing basketball games. Might be a precursor to what we'll talk about in college in just a few moments. But the Grizzlies, how about that fourth quarter? 37-17, the Timberwolves hammer them to 17-2 at home. But also, these are the tough ones, Ben. You're getting 12.5 points from the Memphis Grizzlies. You enter into that fourth quarter, you're feeling good about yourself, and you come away with absolutely nothing here. That's a big-time win by Minnesota in that monster fourth quarter comeback and crushing the Memphis Grizzlies.
The Grizz were up by 5 entering the fourth quarter in their second game without Desmond Bane, Marcus Smart, and, of course, without Ja Morant for the remainder of this year. Anthony Edwards leads the way for Minnesota. All 5 starters in double digits, 30-11. That is the record this season for Minnesota, the best out west. A big night for Jalen Brunson inside Madison Square Garden, and the Knickerbockers needed it against the Washington Wizards. Only a 4-point win for New York, 113-109. The Knicks do not cover as a 12-point favorite, but Jalen Brunson 41-8 as the New York Knicks, Donnie, have won 7 of their last 9 games. In all 7 victories, by the way, the total has stayed under.
Yeah, you don't need your A game, B game, and maybe even just your C game to beat teams like the Washington Wizards, who are now 4-19 away from home, 7-33 on the season. A win is a win. Nobody's going to look back and say, would have been better if we lost that game as a Knicks backer. Stop it here. Knicks pick up the victory. That's all that matters. And by the way, Washington is really bad.
Plenty more reaction around the association coming your way in just a few minutes. Now to college basketball, as Donnie alluded to. The Memphis Grizzlies are shorthanded. The Memphis Grizzlies are one of the worst teams in the Western Conference. The 10th-ranked Memphis Tigers, a very different story so far this season for Penny Hardaway's crew. Now an AP top 10 team, a perfect 4-0 in the American entering last night. But Memphis, who was up by 20 early on in the second half, gets upset on their own home floor by USF. The Bulls of South Florida go walking in Memphis, 74-73, pulling the upset and winning outright as a 10.5-point underdog against Memphis.
Yeah, got the double whammy on this game, too. You take a look at this. Okay, if you wanted the minus 11.5, should have covered easy with a 15-point lead at the break. The next 5 points out of the break were scored by Memphis to run it up to 20. So it looks like they were going to easily hit that 84.5 number. And then you find out that it's 73-73 late, and you're just looking to get the OT for that extra shot at it, and you can't even get there. And then Memphis just loses outright. And by the way, as bettors out here that we know, it's not a nice thing that we do, Ben, but if you're not going to win your bet, you might as well have your team lose outright. So there you go, Memphis. We're even now.
Memphis had 47 points in the opening half. DRS thought he was going to walk to the window to go over 84 and a hook for a Memphis team that had scored at least 107 points in each of his past 2 games, only 26 in those final 20 minutes, and USF pulls off a stunner. So Memphis 4-1 in conference play. FAU an 86-77 win over Wichita State last night in Boca. The Owls also 4-1 in the AAC, a 2-team race atop that conference. The NFL coaching carousel is starting to spin. Mike Tomlin, in his end-of-year interviews yesterday, meeting with the media, this time a little bit calmer and collected, following Pittsburgh's loss in Buffalo on Monday. When he was asked about his future then, he stormed off the podium. When he was asked about his future yesterday, he said he is re-energized, he is ready to go, and he expects a contract extension with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Currently, 2024, Donnie, would be the final year of Tomlin's deal to be the head man in the Steel City.
Yeah, we expected him to come back here, but also I understand that we love the fact that Mike Tomlin never has losing seasons, but that's not really what the Pittsburgh Steelers have been about in their careers here. So let's say in their franchise history. They're about making the playoffs, going on runs and winning Lombardi trophies, something they haven't sniffed for a long, long time now. Love the fact that they won. Let's see what Mike Tomlin can do, because also, as he said, we're going to move outside the building to get our OC here. Maybe we'll get some offense finally in Pittsburgh, Ben.
He has never had a losing season. He has never had less than 8 wins in a year in his 17 as the head coach of this Steelers franchise. 11 playoff appearances in 17 NFL seasons, but they have not reached a Super Bowl or an AFC championship game since 2010. That was a long time ago. Mike Vrabel has his first interview with the LA Chargers yesterday. They also interviewed former Stanford head coach David Shaw. We will see what the Bolts do in Los Angeles. Some college football news as well. Ohio State, Donnie, hiring a new offensive coordinator, a guy that has NFL experience, the former Patriots OC, Bill O'Brien, making his way to Columbus.
Yeah, by the way, this is panic mode now for the Ohio State Buckeyes. This doesn't make any sense. I don't know where it came from. And quite frankly, I had to check the sources from checkmark accounts on guys that I follow that I know they're not fake accounts. I still had to double check to see it was a fake account. I'm not understanding this, Ben, at all.
So Bill O'Brien as the offensive coordinator at Alabama, top 5 offenses each and every year. I actually kind of like the move. Cam McCormick, Donnie, coming back to Miami, a 9th year of college football. That's longer than DRS was in college. We go around the association up next, live right here on the Early Line.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships and they still wanted them out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula, you
Mike Shula
replacing
was a
him?
disaster. Dubas was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline, and I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It is a divisional round football Friday, live right here on the Early Line on SportsGrid. But before we preview the divisional weekend in the National Football League playoffs, we look back on a Thursday night around the association. A 5-game slate in the NBA. We're going to recap all 5 live right here on TEL. A battle at the top for the best record in the Western Conference. The Minnesota Timberwolves occupy that number 1 overall spot at the moment, the first out west to reach 30 wins, as we told you at the very start of this show. But hot on their heels, the Oklahoma City Thunder. 134-129. The victory for OKC on the road last night in Salt Lake. The Thunder, Donnie, win and cover as a 3.5-point road favorite against the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, we capped this one yesterday and thought, taking a look, that was a nice line here for Oklahoma City, but also the Utah Jazz have been a really sneaky good basketball team as of late. We remember their East Coast swing when they came back like, hey, we're kings of the Eastern Conference now. 15-6 at home. You knew they were playing at elevation, but this was one of those games where you felt Oklahoma City had to come out and certainly meet that match. 39 points in the first quarter, outscored Utah. It only scored 27, so it was a 12-point victory there in the first. Holmgren, 15 points. Williams, 27 points. The balanced scoring overall. And I know I said this yesterday, Ben, when sometimes you can play basketball without any other worries, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists for Josh Giddey. Maybe a new lease on life there for OKC. Big-time win for them in Utah.
The police investigation into Josh Giddey has come to a conclusion with no further findings at this moment. His 1,000th career assist last night in his short NBA career as well for the Thunder. A matchup, Donnie, in Salt Lake between 2 of the 4 teams in the NBA that have better than a 60% cover percentage so far in this 2023-24 NBA season, and we're at the midway point. Oklahoma City now covering as a 3.5-point road favorite, winning by 5, 134-129. The best cover team in the association, 27-13-1 ATS. That's a 67.5% cover percentage. Utah falls just below the 60% benchmark that they were entering last night, around a 61% cover percentage. But Utah was riding a 6-game winning streak entering last night. That came to a close, but Utah still as an underdog, 18-15-1 against the spread. OKC as the favored side, now 18-8 ATS. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, by the way, one of the 3 best prices to win the NBA MVP award, hadn't scored 30 in 2 consecutive games, which is almost unheard of for SGA 31 points last night, but finishing just a hook shy of his points prop. That was 31 and a half. 244 and a half was the total in that game. It sails over a very high total out in Sacramento as well. Closed at 245. It goes over between the Kings and the Pacers. And Indiana, even without Tyrese Halliburton in the starting lineup, pulls off the upset on the road in Northern California. 126-121. Indiana, Donnie, winning outright as an 8-point underdog, something the Pacers have done often this year. Their 13th straight-up victory booked as a dog this season.
Yeah, we had to wait till late in the day to get Tyrese Halliburton's update here to see if he was going to be in the lineup or out of the lineup, and he was out last night, which should have been an easy victory for Sacramento. And also, Ben, if you would have told me again, entering into this game, no Tyrese Halliburton, no Pascal Siakam just yet, this should be an easy win for the Kings. And then you tell me Domantas Sabonis goes 21, 11, and 10 for a triple-double. Murray has 27, Fox has 24, and Herter has 31 points. You would have thought the Kings won this game by 30 points over the Indiana Pacers, let alone not even winning, just winning with ease, and they end up losing 126-121. That's a good win for the Pacers. The one thing that we do know is the system is in place for tempo to be played on the court regardless of who's there. Now you add some all-star caliber players back to that lineup, which we'll be getting in the next 2 or 3 days. This should be a fun Pacers team to watch the rest of the way, Ben.
Indiana, one of 3 teams in the NBA this year, alongside Oklahoma City and New Orleans, that has a winning record straight up as an underdog. Make that 13-11 straight up when booked as a dog. 14-10 against the number. Sacramento as a favorite, not good. 14-16 now ATS throughout this season. And Donnie is spot on. You see the numbers last night for the Kings? You ask yourself, how did this happen? Well, Indiana had 7 players score in double figures, led by Benedict Mathurin, who had 25, and TJ McConnell, a resurgence last night, 20 points and 10 dimes. What's so fascinating, Donnie, in the 4 games that Indiana has played without Tyrese Halliburton entering last night, they went under in all 4 last night, barely over a pregame total around 245 to 46. So as we go in the Western Conference, with Indiana being 7 games above 500 out east, the first team out west to reach 30 wins this year, the Minnesota Timberwolves. As we said, a big fourth quarter comeback, outscoring the Memphis Grizzlies by 20, winning the fourth and final stanza, 37-17, the margin for a 15-point home victory. The T-Wolves win 118-103 over the shorthanded Memphis Grizzlies, even covering, Donnie, because of that fourth quarter surge, as a 12.5-point home favorite.
Yeah, Memphis just ran out of gas here, and that's what's supposed to happen when you don't have your superstars there. Eventually, the cream is going to rise to the top, and the Minnesota Timberwolves were that cream. 37 points in the fourth quarter, 17 for the Memphis Grizzlies. But, Ben, we talk about this in the Eastern Conference so much. You take a look at teams like the Celtics at 20-0 and how important it is to have home court advantage, because the damage you can do in protecting that. The Minnesota Timberwolves moved to 17-2 straight up on their home court. That's something you can hang your hat on, because nobody wants to go to Denver. Nobody wants to have home court advantage against them when they're taking on the Phoenix Suns. You want it in your own building. Every single win is going to help you get there. 30 wins on the season for the T-Wolves, and again, a sensational home record for them.
Should it be a surprise to know the best team in the NBA, the Boston Celtics, at 32-9, are a perfect 20-0 at home, the team with the second best record, the only other team to reach 30 wins so far this season? The Minnesota Timberwolves have the second best home winning percentage at 17-2 in Minneapolis so far this season. A big night for Anthony Edwards, who had an unreal play. Looked like he shot the ball from the elbow. It goes off the backboard. He follows his own shot and then dunks it home. A freak athlete is Ant. He has 28 points to lead Minnesota last night. So the T-Wolves, the best record out west, 30-11. Oklahoma City, who got a win last night on the road in Salt Lake, second best winning percentage in the Western Conference, 28-13. The Denver Nuggets, also 28 wins so far this season for the reigning NBA champs, a 28-14 record. The New York Knicks playing pretty good basketball with OG Anunoby in the lineup, but it was Jalen Brunson last night at the Mecca that had himself an all-star type performance. 41 points, 8 boards, 8 dimes last night as the Knicks hold on to beat the Washington Wizards 113-109 inside Madison Square Garden. The Knicks did not cover as a 12-point home favorite, but that's 7 wins, Donnie, for the Knicks in their last 9 games. And my favorite trend, to know they are a fully Tom Thibodeau team, all 7 wins have stayed under the pregame total.
Yeah, it's the way to do it. That's the way he wants that done. And also, again, as I pointed out in the 7-7, you don't need your A or B game here to beat the Wizards, but at least you brought your C game on your home court and walked away with a victory. Brunson with 41 points over 40 minutes of playing here. That's what they needed last night. They picked up the win, and that's all that matters here.
The New York Knicks playing really good basketball at this time. OG Anunoby was traded to New York from the Raptors, of course, earlier this week. Toronto sending Pascal Siakam to Indiana. The Raptors now in a rebuild, and we saw it last night up in the 6. A 2-point home underdog against the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls go up to the Great White North and win by 6, 116-110, covering as a 2-point road favorite in Toronto.
Yeah, by the way, I actually thought we might get a little bit of bump here from Toronto and saying, like, okay, they traded their guys away. Let's see some of the other guys step up. I actually think the odds boost at the FanDuel Sportsbook here. That a couple guys in this game that needed 15 points, and we were only let down. I believe Quickly was the only one who got 12 points, didn't get to the 15. But it's a good effort by the Raptors, but I think most people expected the Bulls to win that game just by default.
Nikola Vucevic pretty much consistently adds in a double-double, 24 points, 14 boards for Chicago last night. Scotty Barnes is the young promising star for the Raptors, 31 points. The Bulls this year now 9-9 against the spread, booked as the favorite. Our coach, JY, joins us next.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division favorite.
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula, you
Mike Shula was a disaster. Dubos was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline, and I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's a divisional round football Friday, so pretty much for the next 2.5 hours, we are going to be breaking down the divisional weekend in the National Football League postseason. But before we get there, we need a hardwood handicap to send you into your weekend before the football starts on a Saturday afternoon. And that's why we call on our coach, JY James Young, live right here on this Friday on the early line on SportsGrid. JY, we are very glad to have you here. A preview of a Friday night in the association. But I must say, you are in some rare company right now. Myself and DRS, the two premier NBA handicappers here on the network. So make sure you bring it on this Friday.
Yeah. Hey, listen, the pressure is on already. I've had my 2 cups of coffee. I'm ready to roll. Good morning, gentlemen. Always a pleasure.
We appreciate that, JY. We expect tonight in Portland, Pascal Siakam to make his debut for the Indiana Pacers. Traded earlier this week by the Toronto Raptors to Indiana. In return, the Raptors get 3 first-round picks and a couple of veteran players as well. Indiana pulls off the stunner without Siakam or Tyrese Halliburton in the lineup last night up in Sacramento, winning outright as an 8-point underdog. Tonight, though, JY, in the Rose City against the Trailblazers, Indiana booked as a 5-point favorite. If Siakam does, in fact, make his Pacers debut tonight, what do you expect to see out of Indiana's newest player?
Honestly, I expect to see fireworks. It's amazing. An Indiana team that plays as fast or faster than anybody in the NBA now goes and gets Pascal Siakam, and it unlocks a couple of things, guys, quickly offensively. Number one, it allows Halliburton now to go off the ball at times when he comes back from injury, because you got a guy like Pascal Siakam who can lead the fast break at that point forward position. The second thing he does is he runs, and people realize this, he runs a lane as good as anybody. So now you got a lob threat, a guy can run the floor. And the last thing I think is the key thing, when Siakam got to the league, guys, he was more of a defender. He is a premier defender, can guard 1 through 4. It unlocks something in Indiana that I think is going to help them, because we know with Indiana, it's not about their scoring. It's about getting stopped. So that front court with Siakam and Miles Turner, one of the best premier shot blockers and rebounders, to be paired up with Siakam makes him very dangerous moving forward. But I will say this, Jarris Walker was not traded. Benedict Mathurin was not traded. They only gave up 2 first-round picks. They have more in the future. At some point, may not be now, maybe the offseason, they could add, ready for this, another star to be in that lineup.
Coach, let's take a look here now at the Eastern Conference odds for the NBA, and quite frankly so. The Indiana Pacers now a 25-1 price to win the East. The top teams, of course, the Celtics plus 125, the Bucks plus 210, the Sixers plus 550, the Heat 16-1, and your New York Knicks at 19-1. Give us a summation there. Did the Indiana Pacers get good enough where they can cause some damage in the East? I'm not saying overtake the Celtics or Bucks. Or are they now a legitimate contender to knock somebody out or even get to that second round?
You know, guys, if you think about it, Donnie, I think there's a pecking order in the East, okay? I think Boston is the clear best team in the East, although I do have concerns with the fact of, can Porzingis stay healthy? Will, Jaylen Brown learn how to go left in the playoffs? Will we get any 4 for 16 out of Jason Tatum? Will Father Time catch up to Al Horford? These are all legitimate concerns with Boston, but they're the best team. Milwaukee, I don't think they have a stopper in the perimeter. That's my concern with them. The Sixers, you got to worry about JoJo's health. I think they're going to try and add someone at the deadline. Maybe think about this. Maybe like a Bruce Brown, if he gets flipped, they need a 3-and-D guy. They were rumored to be looking at Anunoby. I'm not a big believer in Miami. I think it's starting to come to an end here. I do think the Knicks are intriguing. I think they're better with Isaiah Hartenstein as the center than Mitchell Robinson. That should be interesting if Mitchell comes back. But you're going to see the Knicks try and add a piece at the deadline. There's talk of Scary Terry. There's talk of Malcolm Brogdon. There's obviously the DeJounte Murray talk. The Knicks are dangerous. So are the Pacers. I think they can give the top three a run, but they're still each one piece away from really being, to me, a title contender.
JY, you see it in the odds. You see it kind of in the standings. Boston on its own tier. The NBA Finals favorites, the Eastern Conference favorites as well. Plus 130, the best record in the league at 32-9. Two other teams out east with more than 25 wins so far this season. The Bucks have 28. And the Sixers have 26. And then there is that jumbled middle of the pack in the Eastern Conference, led by the Cavs, the Knicks in the fold, the Pacers now. Everybody wants to play with Tyrese Halliburton. And the young up-and-coming Orlando Magic, 3 games above 500 as well. We go to Florida for a matchup tonight between the Sixers and the Magic. Philly booked as a 5.5-point favorite on the road in Orlando. JY, what's your breakdown for this matchup on a Friday night?
Well, to me, as long as JoJo and Embiid's playing, they're in trouble. And I think that's the thing that you look at is when you look at Philadelphia, folks, when Joel Embiid plays, it's a completely different element, right, guys? Because it's your number one scorer. It's a guy that can command so much attention. And Orlando, although they're really good defensively, they're good defensively at the guard position, right? With a guy like a Suggs, who's a pretty good defender. When you get to that center position, Wendell Carter Jr. has been hurt, on and off. There's no one to check JoJo. And I think Orlando's been a team that was, remember, folks, at one point, I think, man, they were third in the East. They've kind of slid back. I know they're 3-7 in their last 10. I know they won in New York on Monday, but that took a Julius Randle absolute dud, right? And no Brunson to win by 4. So to me, Orlando's starting to come back to the pack. I love Philadelphia minus the points. JoJo goes absolutely nuclear. 30-10, put it in the bank. This kind of stuff means a lot to JoJo. And the more he starts racking it up, the more you'll see his MVP odds keep coming up, because it's that versus the 11 games that he's missed so far this year. That's going to be like how this sliding scale works. Does he keep playing? And if he keeps playing at the level, his odds will shrink. As he starts missing more games, you'll see it go the other way.
Coach, let's take a look at those MVP odds right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook, because it seems like it's a 3-horse race right now. Nikola Jokic plus 240, Joel Embiid at a plus 260 price, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at a 3-1 price. Then you have that short fall off there to Luka Doncic at 7-1. But I think it's intriguing, Coach. And how do you handicap this? Because this is something we haven't seen before. Usually we just pick the best player on the court. We're not worried about games played now. But now you actually have to handicap if Joel Embiid is going to make it to the finish line. Even if he is the best player, he might be ineligible for the award, Coach.
Right, and I think that's the key thing. So, his odds were longer until he had that great performance versus Denver. And let me just say this real quick, folks. As a former basketball coach, as someone who coached bigs, I can't stand it where I see Joker and Embiid not guarding each other. Like, I want to see that. I grew up in the days of Ewing guarding Olajuwon, Ewing guarding Robinson, Shaq guarding Ewing, Shaq guarding whoever. Like, I don't want to see Aaron Gordon guarding Joel Embiid. Like, that's garbage. Like, go play each other and not let each other go off. That's enough for that take. Now, when you get to this, I think one thing that's going to be important, guys, is I don't want people to sleep on SGA, okay, at 3-1, because he's played a ton of games. And here's the thing, folks. I think this may come down to what happens down the stretch of the regular season. Oklahoma City has the 4th easiest schedule according to Tankathon. If they can find a way to get to the 1, I think that presents something where you may look at an SGA to be an MVP. Speaking of MVP, I'm going to say this. Why has there been no discussion about Anthony Edwards not being MVP? Like, this team's the best team in the West. They're the number 1 seed. They have an easier schedule than Oklahoma City. Like, you're looking at the odds, and Anthony Edwards is 50-1. I'm not saying you put a lot of money on it, but if they can stay at that 1 seed and Ant continues to excel, I mean, you saw the throw it off the backboard dunk last night, which was ridiculous. I would put a couple of dollars on Anthony Edwards to see if he starts to make a push in the second half.
He's certainly taking that evolution into one of the best in the NBA. 28 points last night to lead Minnesota in its fourth quarter comeback against the Memphis Grizzlies. The T-Wolves, the best team out west, the best team in the NBA, that would be the Boston Celtics. Tonight at home inside TD Garden, where the C's this year, JY, have played 20 home games. They have won all 20 games. So who enters? The defending NBA champion Denver Nuggets. A 6.5-point spread in favor of the C's. Denver has only been booked as a dog 4 previous times this year. A two-part question, JY. Is it an NBA Finals preview this season? And could this be the night the Boston Celtics first lose a home game this year?
I'm going to say that there is a possibility. I think Boston's going to win. I think it's going to be a great game. I will say this. I think Boston makes it to the finals. And we haven't even talked about this team. The team I think that makes it to the finals, sorry, Kevin Walsh, you're going to get pissed off with me with this. I think it may be the Clippers. If the Claw, and I know it's big if, can continue to play the way he's been playing and healthy, with that lineup, with Harden buying in, with PG-13, with that group, Tyronn Lue's one of the best in the business. I think right now, the Clippers are my pick to come out of the West.
Don't you worry about old K-Dubs. He's sleeping right
he doesn't
now.
know what
He
he's
works
talking about
nights.
anyway.
We know that.
He doesn't know NBA.
No
He don't know
doubt
NBA.
about that. Yeah. I mean, listen, it's these two guys right here. See you, J-A-Y. More on the early line next.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't
favorite.
care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula, that you're
Mike Shula
replacing
was a
him.
disaster. Dubas was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It is finally, truly, a Football Friday live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. The NFL's Final 8 enter the divisional round of the National Football League postseason. 8 teams, 4 in each conference, still in the chase for a conference championship and a spot, of course, in Super Bowl Sunday, Super Bowl 58, out in Las Vegas. So we reset where things stand around the NFL postseason before we dive into the divisional round that starts in just over 24 hours, a doubleheader on Saturday, 2 more games on Sunday, 4 divisional round matchups to break down here on this Football Friday on the early line. DRS, we start in the AFC. The number 1 seed, the Baltimore Ravens, now into the playoff fold, the best team in the NFL this year with the most wins and a 13-4 record. Baltimore plus 115, the number 1 overall seed. They will host the Houston Texans to start off the divisional round tomorrow afternoon. The Bills and the Chiefs face off to end the divisional round on Sunday. Buffalo, a 2.5-point home favorite, plus 220 for the Bills in the AFC title odds. The Chiefs over $1 behind at plus 330, and then a large drop-off with the longest of the 4 prices to the Houston Texans at 13-1. So, DRS, as you evaluate the AFC championship market entering this division round, what is your main takeaway?
It's clear that you want to be the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. This is what you fight for. This is what you play for all the years. And this is also why it's so important to be at home in your own building. Case in point, you're going to take on the Texans team here that already had to play a couple, it feels like, playoff games just to get to this one. I understand that Week 18 wasn't necessarily a playoff game, but it was. Win or lose. If you win that game, you move on. Lose, you're going to go home there. The Texans then absolutely destroyed Cleveland last week, and now they move forward to take on Baltimore, who is rested and ready, should be full go, and maybe even getting Mark Andrews back. But if we're just taking a look at the AFC as a whole, right? Dome team going outdoors, 20-degree temperatures tomorrow in Baltimore, 13, 14, 15-mile-an-hour winds. That's going to benefit the team with the more mobile quarterback and the better ground game, which is Baltimore. But also, you don't have to play Buffalo or Kansas City tomorrow, Ben. Isn't that a win already at that point? You watch those 2 Titans battle, and you say, look, I got close to a 10-point number. I should be able to beat this football team, move on, and not worry because I only have to beat one of you, meaning Kansas City or Buffalo, not both of those. The Bills, if they beat Kansas City, I'm sure it's going to take a heck of an effort to do that. And then they go, okay, now we got to go to the Charm City, beat the number 1 seed. The same thing with Kansas City at this point. Boy, what a favor it was for Baltimore to come down the stretch, play their best football, and get that number 1 overall seed. That path is the path that you want, not the Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs right now.
And a credit to the Baltimore Ravens that, Donnie, entering the final 5 weeks of the regular season, you know well, the Flock had the most difficult schedule remaining in the NFL, including that Christmas night trip out to Santa Clara, booked as a 5.5-point dog against the Super Bowl favorites, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Ravens won that game outright. To the team that wins, they get to reap in all the rewards. So that's where Baltimore sits as the number 1 overall seed. Quick follow-up question, Donnie, before we dive in to the NFC. The Ravens, a 9.5-point favorite against the Texans. If they are to host the AFC Championship game next weekend against either the Bills or the Chiefs, you see the numbers there. You see how tight the odds are for those 3 teams at the top of the AFC. What would you estimate a spread to be in the Ravens' favor against either Buffalo or KC?
I'm sure they're out now, but I actually didn't take a look at those, so it's a great question that you ask. If we're being honest with ourselves and we're not going to get any crazy weather conditions, I would probably put Baltimore a similar price over either one of the Bills and or the Chiefs. Now, you take a look at this week, they're heavy favorites at 9.5, and they're supposed to be that high. Number 1 seed coming off a bye, going against a team that maybe we didn't think would be in the playoffs. We expected the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs late in the season, the way they're playing, to be an AFC contender. To be honest, I can't see these lines going over 3.5, Ben, for either one of these football teams should they line up in the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, I think that's a really spot on point. I think it's right around a field goal. Maybe the flat 3, maybe a hook added on. I would not be surprised to see just a 2.5-point spread in favor of the flock against either the Buffalo Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs. Now out to the NFC, where the number 1 overall seed is the San Francisco 49ers. And unlike the AFC, Donnie, where everybody has a plus money price still available, not the case in the NFC. The Niners, before even playing in a postseason game, are nearly a $2 favorite with a minus in front to win the NFC title this year, minus 180. Donnie, what do the odds say to you about how the NFC stacks up in these final 2 rounds?
Yeah, and it should be the San Francisco 49ers NFC to win. And you're asking that same question, like, well, how could the Ravens be plus 115? They're still a number 1 seed. They haven't played yet. Why aren't they minus money prices? Well, the Buffalo Bills and or Kansas City Chiefs didn't get knocked out in the AFC before the Ravens even take the field. That happened with the Dallas Cowboys. Even though we saw the San Francisco 49ers waste the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles, the perception now is the path is a little bit easier for the 49ers, and rightfully so. Now, they might get shocked by the Packers this weekend, don't get me wrong, but that's the perception here. The Baltimore Ravens at a plus 115, they're going to have a 10-bell home game against either the Bills or the Chiefs should they win. The 49ers are still going to get a quality football team, right? Whether it's the Lions, the Green Bay Packers, or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but it doesn't hold the same weight as you still got to beat the Bills and or the Chiefs. That's why they deserve to be a minus 180 price.
Detroit, a 6.5-point favorite in the first game up on Sunday at home against Tampa. Again, if we just follow the odds and the Lions even went outright by a single point, you would expect San Francisco to be laying at least 5.5 at home for an NFC championship game. Compare that to what we said for Baltimore against either the Bills or the Chiefs, probably more around a field goal number. That's how the odds stack up here entering the divisional round. It has led to some, I'm not going to name names, but people I think are rather astute handicappers making an argument with the 49ers nearly a $2 odds-on favorite to win an NFC title already, virtually punching their ticket to Super Bowl 58 at this moment, thinking there is still value on the 49ers to win the Super Bowl 58 Lombardi Trophy, because San Francisco, before the playoffs got going, plus 220, less than 50 cents, shaved off that price, now entering their first playoff game on this divisional weekend. Again, some handicappers out there who I think know a thing or two about the old pigskin think that's still a pretty valuable price.
By the way, Ben, if you really want to get on some of these people's nerves even more, put out a video today, or the people back in the background, the social media, cut this today now. Yeah. Ben's going to lay minus 180 now for San Francisco to win the NFC because there's value. And the best part about it is they probably will do that and wind up in the Super Bowl. So it's like, look, I didn't care about the price. I had a good number here, and I took it. But if you really want to have some fun, just put that notion out there. Like, you know what? This is so much value, this minus 180. Some people's heads will spin. But again, you're probably going to be on the right side of that one. So we'll have some fun with that. But yes, the value's in the eye of the beholder. If you believe they're going to win a Super Bowl, then it's money that you won at this point here. But most people, when they look at future wagers, like, well, I'm going to tie up a plus 175 wager for like 4 weeks now. I'll try to make some money this weekend. But yes, please double down with even hey, I parlayed the Niners to win the NFC along with them winning the Super Bowl. Yeah, heads explode around here. Heads would explode around here.
That would be an incredible ticket to hold minus 180 on one end to see the plus 175. Again, the thought process of that unnamed football handicapper was more so if San Francisco, which is expected, reaches Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas, they are going to be booked as the favorite to win outright against anybody from the AFC, and thus I have my middling, that person has their middling opportunity for Super Bowl 58 and that Lombardi Trophy in Las Vegas. Donnie, you do see the movement, though, from before the postseason to where the odds stack up right now. Is there a bit of market movement that intrigues you the most where you think there might be some value to see a team get to the end of the road in the NFL's Final 8?
I mean, when we post that graphic up here, right, you take a look at the Niners, it's like, do we expect them to be there? Yes. I already have a ticket on the Ravens. So I think the Bills are explosive, but there's still that feeling out here, Ben. You take a look at that. 10-1 down to 7-1. It's the Kansas City Chiefs that sit out there. Like, rewind 2 years, like in time, last year and the year before. Donnie, what if I told you Patrick Mahomes is going to be healthy and Andy Reid's coaching and the Chiefs from the playoffs, and you're going to get a 7-1 price to win the Super Bowl and the Chiefs? Your head would explode on that one here. And I know I've already given up on the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think they're going to go into Buffalo and win this weekend. But sometimes you just take a look at the price points and say, it just makes some sense. Because, Ben, we'll come back here on Monday, and nobody's going to be like, I can't even believe it. Like Patrick Mahomes won a road playoff game. Never saw that get stopped the madness. It's a 2.5-point number. It's a good football team with one of the best head coaches of all time, and maybe when it's all said and done, the best quarterback of all time here. That number, I'm not going to bet it, so I'm going to preface it, but I don't want any congratulations or that was a dumb bet when it loses. I'm just saying that's an intriguing price on Andy Reid in Kansas City.
Guess what that other astute football handicapper has in terms of Super Bowl tickets? That would be the Kansas City Chiefs last weekend at a 7-1 price as they were throttling the Miami Dolphins on Saturday night in Arrowhead. But I do think it's interesting. I think because of our graphic limitations at times in terms of those boards, only 7 of the 8 teams still in the hunt for a Lombardi Trophy listed. The Green Bay Packers, Donnie, alongside the Pittsburgh Steelers, entering Super Wildcard Weekend, had one of the longest prices. I believe the number was 130-1 for Green Bay. 7-point dog on the road in Dallas against the Cowboys team that, despite the playoff struggles in recent history, had won 16 straight games, at least outright at home. The Packers were over 100-1. I do know that. Now it's 30-1 for Green Bay. Despite being a 9.5-point dog, they have a better price to win Super Bowl 58 than the 6.5-point underdog, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Green Bay now 30-1, Tampa 33-1. A couple of dollars there in difference, and still very long prices for those final 3 teams out of the NFL's remaining 8, but just wanted to make that note. Now from the team perspective to the individuals that drive the bus. That would be the quarterbacks and maybe some skill position players as well. Super Bowl MVP award odds. There should be a natural correlation between the quarterback of a team based on what their team price is to win Super Bowl 58 to their individual number to win that most valuable player award in Las Vegas. Except Lamar Jackson is the favorite to win Super Bowl 58 MVP, and yet he is the quarterback for the team that has the second best price, the quarterback for the team that is the favorites to win Super Bowl 58, Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers. Purdy has that second best number. Positive market movement for all of these quarterbacks that are still here and all of these players on the board. But that's the one distinction for me, Donnie, that Lamar has a better price than Brock to win Super Bowl 58's MVP because we think the San Francisco 49ers might have some other options out there.
Yeah, we call it paint by numbers, right? Sometimes the way you bet. Lamar Jackson, if the Ravens win the Super Bowl, he's going to be the reason. We're not going to say, wow, man, Gus Edwards, 35 carries, 246 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Like, no, Lamar is going to be the catalyst there. Josh Allen for the Buffalo Bills. Hey, look at Stephon Diggs, 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. Who's throwing him the football? Who probably had 15 carries by himself in that game? It's Josh Allen. Patrick Mahomes at an 8-1 price. The Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Probably not because Isaiah Pacheco went off. It's because Patrick Mahomes was clutch when he needed to be. So rightfully so, you look at Brock Purdy at that plus 370 price and say, boy, could it be Debo? Could it be Ayuk? Could it be Christian McCaffrey? We don't do that with any of the other quarterbacks here listed in that top 5. So I do think it's right that he should be a little bit off of that Super Bowl price, whereas the rest of the guys, if they win it, it's going to be because their quarterback won it for them. Brock Purdy probably still going to be, oh, well, his running back was really good and his wide receiver made plays. He was only throwing short passes. He'll get snubbed. If there's one guy to snub, it's probably Brock Purdy.
Again, you see a lot of market movement there. We didn't have the Packers in the team board, but their quarterback, Jordan Love, who actually might be playing at the most elite level at this stage of the NFL playoffs, was 120-1 to win Super Bowl 58's MVP award before the playoffs got going. At this point last week, it's now 34-1 for Jordan Love. We will preview the games in hour number 2 to get you set for the division round this weekend in the NFL postseason. Quickly to college basketball up next.
quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now, he's a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I
favorite.
don't care if they win because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the Book.
This is one of the hardest jobs in all of football. You are replacing Bear Bryant. You are replacing Nick Saban. You are replacing guys who won national championships, and they still wanted him out. They still wanted him gone.
Mike Shula, you're
Mike Shula
replacing
was a
him.
disaster. Dubas was a disaster.
Gene Stallings.
That's what I mean. They ran him out. He won a national championship, and they ran Gene Stallings out.
The Bostonian versus the Book.
Good move by the Clippers, and obviously, folks, they have Tyronn Lue, who I think is one of the best coaches in the league. And I'll say this right now, folks, the way they're playing, I know Minnesota's in first. I know Oklahoma City's been great. I know Denver's been fantastic. But the team I'm thinking right now that could actually come out of the West, if they stay healthy, and he keeps playing like that, it's Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Last year, the Purdue Boilermakers upset by the 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. Is history going to repeat itself?
Purdue is capable of winning 6 games in the NCAA tournament, but the fact is, until Purdue proves that it's capable of not just advancing, but advancing far in the bracket in March, this is going to be the storyline. And I've said that to you throughout the offseason.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
I am not a Cowboys fan. I did not have a Cowboys ticket on this game. I bet the over, but I'm frustrated watching this game. I'm frustrated seeing the Dallas Cowboys think that this is their optimal game plan.
In-game live, prime time. Only on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, the only streaming sports betting network. Tips, info, and insights to up your IQ. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Yes, it is a football Friday, but to end out this opening hour live right here on the Early Line, we enter the zone briefly to look back on a wild night in college basketball and a huge top 5 tilt in women's college hoops on this Friday evening as well out in Pac-12 country. First, last night, Thursday night, the Memphis Tigers had a 20-point lead early on in the second half. They scored 47 points in the opening 20 minutes. They are the number 10 team in the country. They were going to cruise to a victory over South Florida. Not so fast. The Bulls pull off a stunner in Memphis, winning 74-73, handing Penny Hardaway's Tigers their first conference loss so far this season, and USF wins outright as a 10.5-point road underdog.
That's a shocker there for Memphis. I thought they would be easily rolling in this game, and they were 47-32 at the break. The first minute into the second half, Ben, you had a triple and a dunk by Memphis to stretch that lead to 20. Should have been game, set, match here with Memphis rolling away there, but they went into a shell, could not score the ball offensively, and end up losing 74-73 on their home court. That is an absolute shocker, because that's when you get the update at the half, it's like this game is done. Let's just see how many points they can get, how many points do they cover by, and they lost the game outright. Amazing comeback here for the Bulls. Now 3-1 though in conference play.
The two top teams in the AAC, still Memphis and FAU. The Owls winning last night in Boca do not cover as a 12.5 or even greater than that favorite against Wichita State. But both teams are 4-1. Memphis just 1-4 though against the number in conference play now this season. Javon Quinterly had a shot at the buzzer off the iron and no good. Now we go to Boulder. Top 5 tilt in women's college basketball. Colorado, number 3 in the country. UCLA, number 5 in the country. The Bruins suffered their first loss over the weekend on Sunday against number 6 USC. UCLA was ranked 2nd in the country entering this week. Colorado only 1 loss against a top 10 NC State team. Should be a showdown tonight out in Boulder. Hour number 2 is less than a minute away.